The Dealer's Tale with the Goblin. On the first night she said, "Happy King, tell me that he was a trader with a lot of money and dealings in the country, and he came out demanding in some country, and he sat under a tree and put his hand in his way and ate a crack with him and passed away. When he finished eating the balls, he threw the kernel, and he threw a sword in his hand and said to him, 'Stop up and kill you like you killed my son.' The merchant said, 'When I killed your son,' he said, 'when I ate the balls and threw their nuts, the cur came to you and died of his watch, and said to the philanthropist, I know that I am on the debt of a great deal of money, children and wife, and I have a mortgage. Let me go home to my house and give all the right to my rights, and then I will return to you, and I will return to you, and you will do to me what you want, and God, as I say.' Then he went back to his country and said, 'Ginny, the crown of the kings of the jinn, if I tell you my tale with this deer and I see her as a wonder, he will bring me 1/3 of the trader's blood.' She said, 'You know, she is my cousin, my mother's daughter, my blood, and I married her when she was young, and I lived with her for about 30 years, and I didn't have a son, and she took a secret from her with a male boy, and if she looked at her with 2 eyes, 2 eyebrows and full organs, then she grew up something, and she started to travel to some cities, and she traveled to me with a great store, and my cousin met and your son escaped, and I didn't know where she sat there for a year. And I realized the morning of Shahrazad, and I was silent about the words that were permitted. Her sister said to her, 'What good is your speech and his kindness and his kindness and his torture?' And she said, 'Where is this from what the king said to you on the night before, if you live and keep me in his soul?' And the king says, 'God did not kill her until I heard the rest of her talk. And then that night until the morning they became together, and the king went out to his place of office, and the minister was informed of the coffin under his armpit, and then King Wali ruled, and he was cut off until the end of the day, and the minister didn't tell any of this, and the minister was surprised, and then the court broke down, and the king came into his palace. And on the second night, Hadrinzadeh said to her sister Shahrazad, 'Sister, give us your talk, which is the talk of the merchant and the genie.' She said, 'Love and dignity, if the king will allow me to do so.' And the king said to her, 'Tell me, you happy king, with the wise view, that when he saw the crying of the calf, his heart turned to him and said to the shepherd, "Keep this calf among the beasts." All that, and the jinn wonders about the tale of that strange talk. And the owner of the deer said, 'Sir King of the Elves, all that went on, and my cousin, this deer,' she looked and said, 'Slay this calf, he is fat. I am not insulted. I ordered the shepherd to take it and walk it. In the second day I am sitting, and the shepherd will come to me and say, "Sir, I am saying something that you and I will be pleased with." I said, "Yes, my merchant, I had a daughter who had learned magic as a child from an old woman who was with us. When we were yesterday, you gave me the calf, and my daughter looked at him, covered her face, and cried, and she laughed and said, 'My father has lost my destiny with you until you enter upon the foreign men.' And I said to her, 'Where are the foreign men, and why did I cry and laugh?' She said to me, 'This calf, which is with you, my master's son, but is enchanted and enchanted by the wife of his father and his mother. That is why I laughed, and why I cried for his mother, where his father slaughtered her, and I was surprised by it, and what I believed in the morning, until I came to you to teach you, and when I heard the words of this shepherd. When I was drunk without madness, which happened to me until you came to his house, the shepherd's daughter welcomed me and kissed my hand, and then the calf came to me, and I said to the shepherd's daughter, 'Yes, my lord, your son and your liver,' and I said to her, 'If you'll get taken away from her, if you're not safe, then you've heard what you said. And what's the gens over her daughter?' She said, 'I have no desire for money except 2 conditions. First, that I marry her, and the other, that I will marry her, and I will be taken away from her, and that she will not be taken away from her, and she will not be denied her, and she will not be denied to her, and she will not be denied to her, and she will she. And she say, 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 when I will, and I will all the more money under your father's hand, and as for my cousin's blood, it is permitted for you. And when I sold my word, I took a bowl, and I filled it with water, and then I set it up, and I sprayed the calf, and she said, if God created you in a hurry, and it didn't change, and if I was enchanted, he came back to your first creation with God's permission, and then he rose up, and then he became a human being, and I said to him, oh my son, my wife, my shepherd's daughter, and then she charmed my cousin, and I came here, and I asked them about their condition, and I told them what happened to this merchant, and I sat down to see what was happening. And this man said, this is a wonderful talk, and I gave you a third of his blood, and then I gave you a half of his blood. And then he said to him, my brother, my father, and 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 I, and my father, and I, and my brother, and I, and I, and my brother, and I, respectively, and I, and I, and I, and Then I said to them, brothers, we count what money we have, and if it's 6,000 dinars, I say we bury half of it underground, so that if something happens to us, each of us takes 1,000 dinars and causes it. They say, yes, the opinion is, and I take the money and divide it in half, and I bury 3,000 dinars. As for the other 3,000, each of them gave 1,000 dinars, prepared the goods, prepared a boat, transported our goods, and traveled for a month until we entered the city, sold our goods, one in the dinar 10 dinars, and then we wanted to travel, and we found on the seashore a slice on which to create a slice, and kissed my hand, and said, Sir, do you have favors and favors that I will repay you? Yes, I have favors and favors, and if you do not repay me, and she said, Sir, marry me, and take me to your country. And when I heard her, my heart was in love with her, and I loved her, and I didn't leave her for night or day, or I worked for her, and they jealoused me of my money, and I took away my goods, and their eyes were all hungry, and they spoke to me, and took my money, and they said, We kill our brother, and the money is all ours, and the devil has made their work for them. And when I slept next to my wife, and threw me into the sea, when my wife woke up, and I became a chastity.
And carried me on an island, and missed me a little, and she came back to me in the morning, and she said to me, I am your wife, who carried you, and saved you from killing with God's permission. And I know that I am a fairy, and I have seen you, and I love you, and I believe in Allah and His Messenger, and you came to me in the state where you saw me, and I married you, and I have delivered you from drowned you, and I have angered them, that I should not kill you, and I should not kill them. When I heard her tale, I was impressed, and thanked her for doing it, and said to her, The destruction of my brothers should not be, and I told her what happened to me from time to time. When I heard my words, she said, I'm flying to them tonight, drowning their boats and destroying them. By God, do not do it. The proverb says, O philanthropist, whoever abused my abuser's hands, they are my brothers anyway. It is a wonderful story, and a third of his blood was given to you in his felony. At that time, the third sheikh, the owner of the mule, came forward and told the genie that I was telling you a story that was admired by the story of the two. When the owner of the shop saw me, he took me and entered his house. When the butcher's daughter saw me, she covered her face from me. She said, I come to us with a man and enter with him. By God, my daughter, save him. So I took a cob with water in it and spoke to him, and sprayed me a little bit of it, and said, I go out of this picture to your first one, and I go to my first one, and I kiss her hand and say to her, I want my wife to be as charming as she was. So she gave me a little water and said, If I see her sleeping, brush this water on her. She is like a student. That was true. Her sister said to her, My sister, how sweet, sweetest, tastiest, and sweetest you are. "Where is this from, what the midwife told you tonight, if I lived and the king kept me?" And the king said, "By God, I do not kill her until I hear the rest of her speech, because it is wonderful." Then that night they embraced the morning first, you know. "You goblin, this deer is my cousin, my flesh and my blood. And I married her when she was young, and I stayed with her for about 30 years. He brought me a fat calf, and he gave me my enchanted son a calf." When he saw me, he cut his rope, and he came to me, and wool dabbled and cried. Scheherazade realized the morning and was silent about the permissible words. Her sister said to her, "How kind, gentle, tastier, and sweeter you are. And where is this from, what the midwife night told you, if I lived and the king kept me?" And the king said to himself, "By God, I would not kill her until I heard the rest of her speech." Then they became embracing that night until the morning. So the king went out to his place of rule, and the minister came out with the shroud under his armpit. Then King Wali ruled and was removed until the end of the day. On the second night, Dunyazad told her sister Scheherazade, "My sister, complete your speech, which is the talk of the merchant and the genie." She said with love and dignity that the king had authorized me to do so, and the king said to her, "Tell me, happy king with rational opinion, that when he saw the crying of the calf, he turned his heart to him and said to the shepherd, 'Keep this calf among the beasts.' All that, and the genie marvels at the tale of that wonderful talk, and then the deer owner said, 'Mr. Kings of Elves, all this has happened, and my cousin, this deer, looks and sees and says, "Slaughter this calf." He is fat,' I said. 'Yes,' and he said, 'Merchant, I have a daughter who learned magic when she was young from an old woman who was with us. When we were yesterday and you gave me the calf, I went in with it, and my daughter looked at him and covered her face and cried. So I said to her, "Where are the foreign men, and why did you cry and laugh?" She said to me that this calf with you is the son of my lord the merchant, but he is enchanted, and his stepmother and his mother bewitched him. She said, "Yes, sir, what is your son and your liver's weed? Boys, if you saved him, I had the livestock and money under your father." And she smiled and said, "Sir, I have no desire for money except on 2 conditions. If he marries me to him, and the second, if I capture his witches and lock them up, otherwise I am not safe from coercion. All the money under your father's hand is extra, and my cousin's blood is permissible." When I heard my words, I took a bowl and filled it with water. If God created you as a calf, then he will not change this quality, and if you are bewitched, return to your first creation, God willing. By God, you have to tell me all that I have done to you. And with your mother, my cousin, he told me everything that happened to them. My son, God forbid you to save you and save your right. Then Ginny, his wife, is the daughter of the shepherd. This is a wonderful talk, and I gave you a third of his blood. I know, Mr. Kings of Elves, that these 2 dogs are my brothers, and I am the third of them. My father died and left us 3,000 dinars. My brother, did I not advise you not to travel? He cried and said, "My brother, God Almighty has forbidden me to do so. My brother, I count the profit of my shop from year to year. Then I divide it without the capital between you and me. Then I made the shop account from a financial profit and found it 2,000 dinars. Anything that you have earned from your travel in order to earn me." Then I agreed to travel and said to them, "My brothers, we count what we have of the money," so we calculated it. As for the other 3,000, each of them was given 1,000 dinars, and we procured goods. We took a boat, we moved our needs there, we traveled for a whole month until we entered a city and sold our goods. We won 10 dinars. "Sir, do you have kindness and kindness? Sir, marry me and take me home." When I heard her words, my heart longed for her for something that God Almighty wanted. So I took her, clothed her, and brushed her in the boat well. We kill our brother, and all the money becomes ours, and the devil adorns them with their deeds. I am your wife who carried you and saved you from murder, God Almighty willing, and I know that I am a genie, I have seen you. My heart loves you, and I believe in God and his messenger. When I heard her story, I marveled and thanked her for doing it and told her, as for the destruction of my brothers, I should not have told her what had happened to them from time to time. When I heard my words, she said, "I'm flying to them tonight, drowning their boats and destroying them. By God, do not do it. The proverb says, "O philanthropist, whoever abused my abuser's hands, they are my brothers anyway." It is a wonderful story, and a third of his blood was given to you in his felony. At that time, the third sheikh, the owner of the mule, came forward and told the genie that I was telling you a story that was admired by the story of the two. When the owner of the shop saw me, he took me and entered his house.